and welcome to our Open Education Lightning Talks. I'm so delighted to be here and be able to introduce you to our presenters and also be able to give you a lightning talk myself. This is really wonderful to have made it to the last day of the CC Summit in Mexico City. So thank you all for being here and for your attention, for your great questions and your participation. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our first speaker. And as you know, lightning talks are generally 7 minutes of kind of a fast-paced presentation on a given topic. So we will be trying to keep time to the best of our ability, but we may give folks an extra minute or so. Okay, so first up we have Jackeline Bucio. Jackeline Bucio holds a PhD in linguistics. She currently serves as the Deputy Director in the online high school and MOOC area at the Educational Innovation and Distance Education Department of the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico. Very sorry for my accent. In her role, Jackeline designs online professional development courses and MOOCs. She serves as a board member of Wikimedia Mexico, and I've had the pleasure of working with Jackeline and really think she's just one of the most wonderful people. So without further ado, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Jennryn, for this kind presentation, and thank you. It's a pleasure being here. No, nice to be the first one. I mean, I'm all nervous, but I know you're a kind audience, so thank you so much for being here. And it's a pleasure introducing to you this humble initiative, but very de corazón. It's really heartful feel initiative. It's called One Rea, One Ref. And you may be familiarized with another campaigns in Wikipedia that kind of promote the same, like One Beef, One Ref. It's a very successful initiative. Or One Leaf, One Ref, it's another successful initiative. So we wanted to make the same or follow these successful strategies with One Rea, One Ref. And REA is the term we use in Spanish for OER, for Open Educational Resources. So we want this campaign to be an Spanish campaign to get together, to knit open educational resources in Spanish with the respective Wikipedia articles. And I'm doing these presentations on behalf also of my colleagues, Alex and Isa. They work as a staff in Wikimedia Mexico, and we've been working in the educational program of Wikimedia Mexico for now a long time. So thank you so much for being here. And next slide, please. In UNAM, in the National Autonomous University of Mexico, we started with these editathons in 2015 with the help of Wikimedia Mexico. And it's been very successful. We have teachers involved in editing Wikipedia and making this encyclopedia better. And next slide, please. We have a second editathon, and it's coming in 2016. And the people was happy, and we've been editing and creating articles, and successful, we can say. And next slide, please. Up here, the second editathon. And you know, we can gather a lot of people, a lot of teachers, academics, and they get interested in the edition of Wikipedia. And next slide, please. This was the third one, another very successful one. We get people interested. And we are planning a fourth one. Next slide, please. But in this fourth editathon, we wanted to make something different, because a problem we found out in editathons is that articles are taken down very easily, and that causes a disappointment, a very great disappointment in our participants. So how can we modify these editathons to make a better experience and a more gratifying experience for our participants? And we found this campaign, One Rea, One Ref, can be such a strategy. Because we are trying, this is the space where we are going to work, is at the Reserva Natural at the Ciudad Universitaria, the National University. And we'll be editing here, but now through this campaign, One Rea, One Ref. Next slide, please. One Rea, One Ref was presented in the context of the Open Education Week, and we are trying to get together these two events. And it's simply a call for getting together these academic resources in the open with the respective academia articles. Next slide, please. We have a great presentation. We have a space in Wikimedia and in Wikipedia, so people can join through the dashboard that Wikipedia has. You can follow also the campaign through Twitter with the hashtag OneRef, and we've been, announcing this through media, social media. Next slide, please. And the thing is, we've encountered some challenges. For instance, we have like 1,000 learning units, we call it GUAPA in Spanish, in our high school, and they are open available. But they are kind of alone. They don't use as we would like to. They are very used by students and by school. But if we we relate these open educational resources to their Wikipedia respective articles, they could have more use. But there is a problem. These resources are not peer review, and they are not like an article. So we are not using these open educational objects for this campaign, and we are preferring citing articles like are in the open. Like we have this Revista Mexicana de Bachillerato a Distancia, that it's great, but because it has a history of open education in the online settings in Mexico in public online high schools. And then so we are trying to get these articles referenced with the respective Wikipedia articles. Next slide, please. And so we are reinforcing also that teachers really acting what teachers think about Wikipedia. And this is our colleague Ivan, Salvador. But next slide, please. Thank you. And so we've gathered also an interview page with the experiences of our teachers those who finished this course have to make an implementation of Wikipedia. So you can go and check it out what they have to say. You don't have to believe me, but they say this is a successful implementation of Wikipedia in their classrooms. And they have the experience told in these small interviews that you can check at the WikiUNAM community page. And next slide. Finally, talking about knitting and weaving, we think like, we don't think in a brick like something you can weave with, no? It's something heavy. But look at this beautiful Museo Textil de Oaxaca. It has this beautiful wall made out of bricks, exactly. And that reminds me this, reveals what we think about working with Wikipedia and open educational resources. I'm like the man who carried the brick with him to show the world just what his house looked like. And this is what we do, trying to carry these bricks and show what this OIR or this RIA are for Wikipedia and they can enrich. So Benedetti retakes this quote and make its own poem. I'm just gonna quote in English the last verse. I'm sorry. And it says, I hope that this brick live like a piece of my life, stay like a brick in another house. So we hope with the bricks that our academics and teachers bring to these Wikipedia articles, a brick living in another house, and make this cross-reference enriching Wikipedia. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jackeline. Okay, next up we have Ioana Luta and Jennifer Zerke. Ioana Luta is a digital publishing librarian at Simon Fraser University Library and Public Knowledge Project. In this role, she oversees providing publishing support and faculty support to student journals and monographs on open journal systems and Open Monograph Press. She provides community support and contributes to instructional documentation and educational resources development. Jennifer Zerke is a copyright specialist in the Simon Fraser University Copyright Office, where she develops and delivers copyright education and information to instructors, researchers, students, and staff. Jennifer completed the CC Certificate for Librarians, yay, in 2018, and has a particular interest in open access and open educational resources, providing support in these areas at SFU as well. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Digital publishing, we can move to the next slide without further ado. Digital publishing at Simon Fraser University provides software, training, and expertise for members of SFU community who are creating online open access publications, including journals, conference proceedings, textbooks, and volumes of student work. Over the last few years, sorry, I missed Jen, I don't want to cover her, including this fall term, the digital publishing of SFU Library has partnered with instructors in various university departments to implement course journals or course books in their classrooms. Course journals provide librarians with an opportunity to collaborate with course instructors to design and deliver a course integrated term-length project where the course instructor is responsible for course syllabus, lesson plans, grading rubric, and final assessment. And the librarian contributes expertise related to scholarly communication, instruction, and technical and editorial support. A bit now about the Public Knowledge Project, because our in-class publishing project use open source software developed by PKP, namely Open Journal Systems, OJS, and Open Monograph Press, OMP. PKP is an SFU core facility dedicated to developing open source software, conducting research, furthering open access to scholarly research. SFU Library Digital Publishing, we support now about 12 student journals, 18 faculty journals, and over the last few years, about 11 course projects. In-class publishing projects are an approach to student writing and publishing that involves students in the production of an online open access journal or book within a structured class environment. These projects feature students' work and involve students in the publishing process. They practice things like peer editing, peer reviewing, copy editing, while they get course credit for their work. A librarian is available to visit a class to discuss topics such as author rights, copyright, open access publishing, Creative Commons licensing, and more. And Jen will provide more details about that. If we move to the next slide, these are some examples of students' work from previous terms at SFU, and then I'll pass this over to Jen. Thank you.
Okay, on the next slide, please. Okay, so Joanna and I will typically go into any class that is using a course journal early in the semester before the students really get into the project to provide an overview, like Joanna said, about copyright, CC licenses, and the publishing process. We start with an intro, of course, to digital publishing, the OJS platform, and the things that Joanna has already outlined. Then we provide an introduction to copyright, so what types of things are protected by copyright, what rights are included, how long copyright lasts. We talk about authors' rights when publishing, both in an open access scenario and in traditional publishing. We do this at a fairly high level, but that then lets us get into some comparisons. So the course journal is a lot like an open access journal, if a little less formal, right? There's no publishing agreement, but there is sort of discussion and consensus in the class about what CC license to apply to the publication as a whole. We can also then make comparisons. This is not like a traditional course assignment where you're just handing something into your instructor or maybe sharing it with your class. So we can get into broader discussions about what does it mean to make it open, what does it mean to have your work out there and reusable by others. So it's not just letting people read it, but thinking about how they might reuse, remix, revise, or use it in other ways. We provide an overview of CC licenses. We talk about the different licenses, what they permit users to do and not do, and things to think about when deciding which one to apply to your work. It's really important to me that students really think through this part and make an informed decision, that they're not just going with whatever their instructor has suggested and applying something without realizing what the implications of that are. So we really try to get into a discussion thinking about what others might do with your work. Okay, we cover the fact that the creator or copyright owner can still grant permission for uses outside the license, the fact that CC licenses are irrevocable, which is another reason to think really carefully about this decision, and the fact that users do still have access to exceptions in the Copyright Act, like fair dealing in Canada, regardless of the terms of that license. Then finally, we get into how to incorporate images in most cases, or sometimes other content created by others, including public domain, all rights reserved, and openly licensed content. So we talk about how to cite these works and how to make their copyright status or license clear within the larger CC licensed course journal, just to make that clear for users. And then we demo a few places to find openly licensed content, so Openverse, Wikimedia Commons, and a few others. And then, of course, like Joanna said, we do make ourselves available by email or for a follow-up visit if needed, if the students have questions as they sort of go through this process. And with that, I will pass it back to Joanna.
Thanks, Jen. And now moving on to the next slides, please. On the benefits of an in-class publishing project, an example of open pedagogy in practice. They do engage students as information creators by involving them in contributing, editing, and publishing content, They teach students about the scholarly publishing system and improve their information literacy through hands-on experiential learning. These projects move away from the disposable assignment and provide students with a global audience. They educate the next generation of scholars about the value of open access, open education, open source software, and the value of the university and student contributions to scholarly conversations by showcasing the final revised version of student research and creative work. Furthermore, they reduce barrier between the classroom and the broader community by, for example, allowing for public comment after the publication. And thank you. That's the next slide. Thank you. And about
Perfect timing. That was perfect timing. All right. I'm next. Okay. Well, thank you so much. My name is Jennryn Wetzler, and I'm the Director of Learning and Training at Creative Commons. And I am so honored to be here in front of all of you, having the chance to give you an update on our CC certificate course and one of the latest derivatives of that course, which is about to launch, hopefully, at the end of this month. So I want to tell you about that. I also want to issue an invitation to everyone. So please stay with me for the duration of this this presentation, because I really hope that we all get a chance to work together by the end of this. Okay, so the CC certificate is it's our global training program. This is an investment in the CC community. It trains people in open licensing using CC licenses, copyright, and recommended practices for sharing in our various global commons. So we hope that as many people in the community can take this course as possible. I know there are 3 certificate graduates on stage right now. I know there are more in the audience, and I know there are more beyond these room walls. And so many people here at this conference have helped start and run the certificate, so we're very, very grateful. So this training course is a 10-week online course, a 1-week in-person or online boot camp, as we call it, and it's focused on giving educators, academic librarians, or cultural heritage experts the skills that they need to better share with their communities. To date, we have graduated, I think, over 1,500 folks from 65 countries, and our goal is to really make this an investment in the community as much as possible. So all of our course content is openly licensed, obviously, and available on our certificate site. And we also encourage anybody who is interested to take the content and make derivatives. We've seen derivatives course take the form of a master's level course in K-12 open pedagogy, or online tests, to other faculty workshops, to other courses entirely. We love seeing these kinds of derivatives. To date, we have 10 language translations of the certificate and more coming. So we are really, really delighted when people look at what we offer and make it more adapted to their community needs. So the latest, one of the latest derivatives of the certificate course content is going to be launched hopefully at the end of this month. And this is actually a micro-credential course. So this came about out of a partnership with the Midwest Higher Education Compact, or MEC, and UNO, the University of Nebraska at Omaha, where we had an initial meeting just talking about the possibilities of collaborating, what it would look like to create a smaller scale course and offer it to not just local UNO communities, but be able to offer it to others as well. So I'm really delighted to give a shout out to colleagues Jenny Parks at MEC and Craig Finley at UNO for making this happen. Hopefully, the 4 months that we've had to collaborate on this project will really yield a wonderful new course that people will be able to take based on the certificate course content. I wanted to highlight a few things that were key in this partnership in case there's a way that we can replicate it. So the way I view this partnership is a pilot to see how we can develop partnerships with other organizations or individuals or institutions to make more micro-credential courses available to more communities. So the top considerations that I had for this kind of partnership, and the reason that this micro-credential partnership worked were pretty simple. So first, we developed an MOU, and this MOU was very specific on the goals, the roles, and the responsibilities, as well as the timeline and financial considerations of the partnership. So the more clarity we had up front, the easier we realized it would be to execute this partnership with a number of different stakeholders at UNO. The second thing was trust. We had such wonderful people that we got to work with. Being able to know and trust one of the certificate alumni, Craig Finley, and also have an existing wonderful relationship with Jenny Parks made this partnership possible. So we need clear communication and trust for any future partnership that we embark on. We also need a mutually viable financial model to make sure that future projects are sustainable. So we always intend to offer the certificate course content and any derivative content that we can freely available online as OER, but we also need to make sure that the people who are putting in so much time and so many staff hours and so on can do this sustainably. So we worked on a financial model, and then finally, adaptability. So this micro-credential program was possible because we were all able to work with different stakeholder needs and adapt when we needed to adapt. There were different timelines that came up and different voices with considerations that we hadn't initially worked into the MOU that came up as well. And so that kind of adaptability, trust, clarity of communication, and a mutually beneficial or viable financial model were kind of like the key takeaways that I wanted to share with you all from this pilot. So with that in mind, I would love to invite all of you to partner with us. If there's a viable way that we can partner on a micro-credential program with you in the future, I would love to make the course content available in yet another way, and work with you. It's such a beautiful community, so please, let's talk. Let's harness this and make more education possible. Thank you so much. All right, next up we have Gabe Galson. Gabe Galson is a technology projects librarian at Temple University in the United States. As co-chair of the Digital Public Library of America's Rights Statements Working Group, he's led a variety of copyright-related projects. Gabe, thank you so much.
Thanks. So, in addition to what you just heard, I also started out as a graphic and web designer. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about best practices for creating visual tools that can aid in copyright teaching. Slide, please. Copyright education shouldn't always happen through lectures, text guides, or workshops. Often, infographics and visual tools are more effective. When well-designed, they're attention-grabbing, involving, and pedagogically effective. They're also mimetic. In a sense, they can disseminate themselves through social media and image search, allowing people from outside a copyright community of practice to learn on their own, basically. So I want to go through a few case studies and show some visual tools that already exist, and also, overview the process of creating new ones, if you're interested in that. Slide. The first thing you want to do is figure out if the tool you have in your head is worth creating. A visual tool should fill a functional niche or meet a specific demand. It should be discoverable by and useful to a group of people that you know exist. And finally, it should allow learning that can occur more effectively than at present. So the line between a visual and a textual tool is often hazy. This is the hurdle chart, which allows a copyright novice to determine the copyright status of a work by proceeding through the chart's logic. Often something straightforward like this and non-visual is all that you need, rather than a more elaborate design. Slide. This is the Sunstein chart. It basically serves the same purpose as the hurdle, but does so through a flowchart structure. I've found that this is more effective for copyright teaching, but on the other hand, it's a bit less comprehensive than the hurdle, which basically covers everything you'll need when assigning or determining a copyright status. Slide. This is the Right Statement Selection tool, which I designed through the Digital Public Library of America. Like the Sunstein, it takes a flowchart approach. However, it focuses on assigning rightstatements.org and Creative Commons licenses. I made this when I realized there was no chart or visual resource that clarifies the usage of rightstatements.org, a relatively new Creative Commons adjacent standard that I think was poorly understood. If you want to learn more about rightstatements.org, watch the pre-recorded presentation by Ariadna Matas, Molly Huber, and myself. The chart can be viewed as a PDF and opened in a browser, and it features clickable buttons that will take you to the correct rightstatements.org URI page, where you can sort of get the full information on its usage. This lets it both be a little more dynamic in an educational setting and be able to be used more actively in metadata workflows. Next slide. When using the Right Statement Selection tool, I actually outsourced the selection of Creative Commons, if that's indicated, to this Creative Commons Australia chart, which is kind of similar to the last two tools I showed. It's a flowchart that will lead you to the correct license and also features clickable links to the page in question. Unfortunately, the chart that I made, the link I found is broken like this morning, so I'll need to update it, which is kind of a constant process with this stuff. So that's something to keep in mind. Next slide. Finally, this is the Minnesota Digital Library's rights review chart. This takes an integrated approach and covers both Creative Commons and rightstatements.org. To do this, it kind of had to sacrifice a degree of completeness, and that's a bad thing, but a good thing is that it's way easier to use for its targeted users. Next slide. Once you've determined that a copyright tool or visual resource is needed, you want to think about why it's needed, what already exists, who the audience is, and what are their needs, and how visually elaborate the tool should be to fulfill its purpose. You also want to think through from the very start how it will be disseminated and make sure that that can happen efficiently. Next slide. Once you're designing the chart or working with someone who's going to design the chart or visual tool, you want to think about its approachability, how appealing it is, whether it makes learning fun, its clarity and ease of use. You know, hopefully an infographic or diagram should sort of simplify and allow visual learners to pick things up more quickly. Navigability is similar. Does it sort of clarify? The suitability to the audience is important too, as is the virality. Like, is it able to be reshared on Twitter? Is it going to come up in an image search, et cetera, et cetera. Finally, you want to attend to its accessibility. Does it accommodate screen reader users who can and can't use it? Definitely think about that. And that can really be a challenge with visual resources, but it's worth tackling. Next slide. So thanks everyone for coming. Please talk to me or get in touch if you have any ideas for new charts or resources. Like I said, I'm a graphic designer and I love to partner with people on anything that could be useful. Next, I'm trying to make a resource that clarifies the usage of the local context statements to a degree. And I'd also like to expand that right statement selection tool that I showed to either include copyright status determination and or the selection of a Creative Commons license. So yeah, please talk to me if you have any ideas like that. Thanks.
You all are making my job so easy, being very efficient with the time. So great presentations as well. Okay, let's see. Next up we have Lily Todorinova. Lily is the Open Educational Research Librarian at Rutgers University, where she works closely with faculty on integrating open educational resources in their teaching. Lily is part of a team that oversees Rutgers' OER Incentive Grant Program. Recently, Lily has been working on a research project about AI's impact on OER in academic institutions from the library's perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here so early. I appreciate having an audience this morning. I wasn't sure. My name is Lily, and I'm a librarian at Rutgers. So we're located about pretty much in the middle between New York City and Philadelphia, if that gives you all an idea of where we are. It's a very big university. It's a state university of New Jersey, so we have about 40,000 students enrolled every year. And we're very affordability conscious campus because of tremendous student activism in this area. There's a lot of concern about not just the cost of education in the US, which is a big major issue, but the cost of course materials, rather. So we've had a open and affordable textbook program for about a decade, which has been going well. But you know, this is no surprise to, I think, any of you here. There's some challenges with kind of incentivizing faculty to adopt an open approach to teaching, and that has to do with time, lack of technological shortcuts, if you will, and lack of, I think, education in this area about the importance of OER. And so in this presentation, I'm kind of touching on this idea of, you know, how could AI be leveraged to help with OER adoption? I think in the summit so far, we've had some really very good discussions about AI in terms of both its benefits and its drawbacks. It's here, right? It's here to stay. It's a big feature of higher ed, whether we recognize it or not. And so my interest is in seeing, from my perspective, how can I use AI to incentivize OER adoption? We can move to the next slide, I think. So first, you know, I did a little bit of a environmental scan, if you will, of other Big Ten institutions, meaning big state universities like my own in the US. And I compiled all of the websites I could find about, you know, what is their statement about AI? What have they said about it? What guidance have they offered to their faculty in terms of teaching and learning with generative AI tools? And these are some of the bullet points of the things that are pretty much addressed in every one of these documents. It feels like everybody rushed to create guides and statements about AI, but they feel a bit surface level to me, you know, in terms of how they might apply to the actual classroom. And as you can see from this list, it's very much focused on the threat of AI, right? In terms of academic integrity, in terms of, you know, how students are going to behave in the classroom. I think that's basically the main thing that universities have sort of zeroed in on. But towards the end there, if you could see that in bold, there is also some interesting statements about what are the pedagogical uses of AI. How is AI going to change how we teach our courses in maybe ways that are interesting, maybe ways that move us forward from some models that potentially didn't serve us very well to begin with. We can move to the next slide. So this is just for clarity. I know that everybody here is very aware of this terminology, most likely, but this is what I mean by open educational resources and specifically open pedagogy practices, right? So how do we engage with students? So it's not really just about the content of the course materials, but how we use that content in the classroom in a way that's inclusive, that centers the student, and is kind of going away from that kind of lecture-based approach that some of us fall back on, right? But again, challenges for both teaching with open educational resources and for creating open educational resources. You know, faculty that I work with really want editorial assistance, for example. They really want content creation. They want help with a lot of these things. Well, AI can help with those things. There are caveats and concerns, and I think in this summit, we've hit on very much all of those. But it is a technical tool that is available, right? So how can that change the way in which we do our work? Next slide, please. The next thing I did is just surveyed my own faculty. These are faculty that are already engaged in open practices. They teach openly, or they have created open materials. These are kind of the sample of the disciplines that I kind of surveyed. And these are some examples of the kind of generative AI tools that they use in their classroom. As we know, these tools seem to pop up every minute. Somebody's creating one right now that we are gonna all learn about. There's just so many of them, and it can be overwhelming. I also wanted to understand specifically from the open faculty perspective, what are their concerns about AI? Because these are faculty that don't seem to be afraid of pedagogical innovation or, you know, those kinds of things, but they still have, you know, concerns about AI. One of them was just the speed at which of change. Again, as I said, AI tools are just being born as we speak. It's overwhelming, and we also don't know the limit of AI, like how quote unquote smart is it going to get? Like how far is it going to go? So there's some concerns, like more existential concerns about that. And of course, academic integrity, plagiarism. Again, you know, it's classroom control. We all want to have some level of control and equity in our classrooms, and so that is a major concern. The end of homework assignments, I thought that one was funny and kind of interesting. Again, maybe that's moving us towards in a different direction from what our fallback is, what we're comfortable with, but that doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing, in my opinion. And then they pointed out some really interesting benefits that they see, helping students edit their work, right? So we all have seen some student papers, right, that need some editing work. I can certainly help with that. Comparing, contrasting AI with human analysis. I've seen some projects already in this, some presentations on this already in the summit. I think that's key. I think those kinds of projects and assignments really help move us forward pedagogically in terms of understanding exactly what is the limit to AI and what makes us unique. And it's a very important one. And then again, moving past the retention of information for assignments, because we know that AI can do a lot of things. It can really help with that. And so how can we elevate the teaching experience if we remove some of those things from it? Next slide, please. So the idea again is just to just try to continue to connect OER and AI in ways that are practical and useful in the classroom. I'm building some training modules along those lines, and other universities have already done this. What I'm excited about is this last one. I want to create I'm already collecting examples of actual use of AI in the OER classroom, which I think will be helpful for the community and also help us better understand how this actually works in practice. Thank you all so much. Happy to answer any questions at the end if there's time.
Great. So, last but not least, we have Pradeep Roy. Pradeep is an interim representative of the CC Global Network Council for CC Australia. He's been a library professional, a researcher, a Creative Commonser, an open access advocate, and more. Pradeep is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Librarian Times and leads the Librarian Times team. Currently, he works as a librarian officer at RMIT University, Melbourne, Australia. He's also a certificate grad. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jennryn. Good morning, dear summiters. I'm delighted to talk about today's topic. Do educators familiar about CC license in Bangladesh, fostering OER community in Bangladesh? So I'm basically from Australia, but I'm talking about Bangladesh. So because I am heavily involved with CC community in Bangladesh, also involved with the OER activists who advocate open access and open educational resources in Bangladesh. Next slide, please. So today, basically, I'm going to talk about the post-COVID awareness, how Bangladeshi university academics use CC license in their open educational resources. And we recently sent a survey form to the university academics to understand about their awareness, and this is an ongoing project. We just recently received 20 responses from the university teachers, and after having the full responses, we are planning to publish the full report. Next slide, please. So let's see the result. So our first question in the form was, have you previously heard of Creative Commons license? So you can see the response only 55% says yes. 45% academics says they are not aware about Creative Commons license. Next slide, please. And the next question was, how aware are they of CC license to use their open educational resources work? And here the response says, the 50% says, I'm not aware about CC license. That is a great outcome, but we are hoping that once we'll receive the more response, we'll see the actual scenario. Next slide, please. The next question was, how would they rate their knowledge regarding CC license? And the response here, none is 45%. Very basic knowledge about CC license is 45%. And advanced level is only 5%. We got one response out of 20 that they have advanced knowledge about CC license. And intermediate level of knowledge, we got only one response, that is 5%. Next slide, please. And the next question was, are they use CC license in their creative work? And the response here, 50% says no. And only 15% says yes. And 35% says never used, as they don't know about that. Next slide, please. And our next question was, does the university have a current awareness activities or any project or initiative to promote CC license? And the answer, 80% says no, and only 20% says yes. Next slide, please. And another important indication of these findings, when we asked about their involvement, about their interest, whether they are interested in involving CC license, and response we can see 90% they're interested in joining and involving in CC license activities in the near future, and 5% says I'm not interested, and 5% says I am already involved. Next slide, please. So we got another big massive data recently that was conducted by Professor Mustafa Azad Kamal. He presented in the first day of the summit about the OER, and he got 700 university teachers' response about the Creative Commons awareness, and the results showing that 38% they're about Creative Commons, and 27.6% says they have only little understanding about CC license and Creative Commons, and 34.4% says they don't have any idea or they never heard about Creative Commons. And when I realized this data, this data reflect the similar results of whatever we found in our recent data. So it's clearly understand that still there is lack of awareness of CC tools in Bangladeshi university teachers. And I think that we need more advocates like Professor Mustafa Azad Kamal and Mohammad Galib, who is also physically present in this session, to promote CC tools and the use of CC tools in their open educational resources in Bangladeshi university. Next slide, please. And I would like to acknowledge Professor Mustafa Azad Kamal for the data. And also, I have my fellow colleague who is also a professor in Bangladeshi universities like Department of Information Science and Library Management of University of Dhaka, because he helps me to collect data. And hopefully, we are able to finish the project soon, and then we'll finally try to published in scholarly journals about the outcome of our project. Next slide. That's it. If you have any question, I'm happy to respond. Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. That was really wonderful. I want to thank everybody for being here. Can we give our speakers a round of applause, please? Great. So that concludes our lightning talks, but please stick around if you have questions for any of the lightning talk presenters. We can remain here for a little bit. Thank you. And feel free to come on down and ask questions so we can make it a little more informal.
Thank you very much. I have a question. Who presented about the Wikimedia education program in Mexico? Maybe it's Jackeline, I'm right? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Actually, it's not a question, but it's sharing my experience, because I was also the Wikipedia education program outreach coordinator in South Asia in 2017, and I played that role for almost 3 years. So actually, when I have seen the context approaching Wikipedia in the classroom or educational programs, such in university and college, the context of Asia was a bit challenging, because the teachers, I did several programs where the teacher says directly that do not use Wikipedia. It does not have any valid reference. And sometimes they used to say that do not use anything from Wiki to your assignments, right? So I want to know what are the challenges that you are facing in the context of Mexico? I'm really interested to know that, because I can't just memorize those memories when I was trying to outreach the WEP. That time it was Wikipedia education program in South Asian context. Like I did several activities in Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, also in Japan. So I would like to know about this. Thank you, and thank you very much for sharing such nice things to recall my memories. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you for that observation. I'm very happy to meet colleagues in the educational programs with Wikipedia. One of the challenges it's combining authorities. But in this case, we've been very, very lucky. Authorities were really open. I think it's because we are working in a distance education area, and they are open to innovation. So they were always really open when we say Wikipedia. It is true that at the beginning it was like the eyebrow-raised thing, Wikipedia in the classroom. What are you going to do? A workshop with Wikipedia? What is that? What's the meaning of that? But with an explanation and just showing the resources and knowing that the Wikimedia Foundation is behind and supporting with materials and with workshops, preparation, that's making the path very, very more, much more easier than it will be otherwise. Another challenge is, of course, in this case, I'm in a position, as I said, with two hats. And it's an alliance that it's happening right now, but we are worried about the sustainability. That's a challenge, no? Who is going to run this program when the people who is helping right now is not? And making it more formal has two sides. Making it formal, it means that requires finance resources. And right now, we don't have it. We do this in a voluntarily way, and that's another way to convince authorities. It won't cost you anything. No? It's a voluntary thing. So we provide the training and as part of our jobs. No? So I think that's another thing. But the sustainability thing, it's the biggest challenge I foresee.
Muchas gracias. For the lady from Rutgers University, you kind of finished very sharply with the theme that's I think it's a big issue, which is related. How can you use AI in classroom, in your collecting different experiences in your university? Could you expand a little bit about that and talk about the different types of uses that you're seeing in your institution? And as well, how can you feed that experience to the commons? Is it going to be open licensed? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So this is just starting now, my collection of examples of using OER in the classroom, and can be anything from, using AI in the OER classroom. It could be anything from an assignment to, discussion that students are having. It could be a paper that they have to, it could be anything. It could be a number of any of the activities that we engage with in the classroom. I think it's a wonderful idea to have that shared openly. At this stage, I don't have enough examples to really pursue that, but I think I would like to, certainly, because I think it would be a great benefit to other faculty to see how AI is being utilized in ways that further their learning goals, as well as to have, again, discussions about all the problematic aspects of it as well. I feel like we really need to open that, because as I showed in one of the earlier slides, the way that universities have sort of responded to it is very kind of fear-based, and it's also not particularly practical as an educator in the classroom. It really doesn't give you any concrete ideas. And so I really want to build a repository of those concrete ideas across the disciplines. Thank you.
So my question is very much related to AI again. So what do you think with AI? So there is a pedagogy. I don't know whether they are following the same pedagogy. So without AI and with AI. So do you think that the pedagogical variation should be there if I would like to address these challenges or concerns? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I think AI really changes how the classroom dynamic potentially works because there is, some of the assignments that you see in a typical classroom, for example, an AI could very easily get an A+ on, right? And so it changes that dynamic in terms of, I guess, forcing the faculty to be more creative about that. And yes, some faculty have responded by just really laying down the law. You cannot use AI, and just being very strict about it, which is one form of response. But I think I'm interested in how it's moving pedagogy forward in terms of those open pedagogical practices that we all kind of appreciate, I think, in this room. Inclusivity, having the students create things, having the students organically understand the course content through their own experiences. Those things AI can't do, right? But it can sort of pose some interesting questions to the class. And so I don't have a specific answer to your question, but I do have the sense that it's AI is shifting pedagogy in all kinds of directions, both positive and then some reactionary ways too.
Okay, thank you so much. We're at time. I know is there one more question? Okay, those of you who need to move on to your next sessions, please feel free. We're gonna see if we can squeeze in one more quick question, and then we are really at time, so maybe let's see if we can summarize quickly. Thank you.
Gracias. Para los compañeros, Jackie, para empezar a admirar mucho el trabajo que están realizando, es grandioso. ¿Y cómo se puede impulsar para permear, o qué nos hace falta al resto de voluntarios, al resto de personas, para que podamos ampliar y difundir más todo el trabajo que están haciendo, para que en miras más adelante las nuevas generaciones ya estén más acostumbradas a este tipo de trabajo de licencias libres, o más adelante lo puedan aprovechar en otras tecnologías como la inteligencia que estamos viendo ahorita.
Thank you, Petros. He is part of the Wikimedia Mexico community, and the community is already participating. I'm sorry, perdón, voy a contestar en inglés para la audiencia. Community is already participating. This course we were talking about, we asked for interviews to members of the community, like one colleague that donates photographs to Wikimedia Commons, and it's part of his job. I mean, he's getting jobs through portfolio of photographs that he's been donating to Wikimedia Commons, for instance. And then I think you can participate by donating us a video with your experience as a Wikipedian, and that will enrich very, very much the course.
Okay, thank you so much. That concludes our lightning talks.